Forbidden knowledge, the truth behind the ban on the books of the Maccabees. Catholic mystery. Imagine if some of the most remarkable accounts of faith, sacrifice, and miracles had been hidden away, kept out of sight in books that many Christians have never read. Welcome to the books of Maccabees, 3 powerful texts from the Ethiopian Orthodox Bible. These books narrate the dramatic struggle of the Jewish people to defend their faith against an empire determined to eradicate it. Excluded or banned from many Christian Bibles, these texts contain stories of divine intervention, heroic battles, and the enduring strength of faith that will challenge much of what you thought you knew about the Bible's history. So, why were these books banned? And what mysteries do they hold that have been kept from you for centuries? In this video, we'll journey through each of the 3 books of Maccabees, uncovering the awe-inspiring details that make them so unique, from miraculous events on the battlefield to martyrs who met death with unshakable conviction. These stories offer insights that may leave you astounded, and we're only beginning. If you're eager to dive deeper into each book individually, let us know by liking this video and leaving a comment below. We're ready to create dedicated videos for each book, exploring the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd books of Maccabees in depth. To make it even easier for you to follow along, we've added chapter links in the description, so you can jump to any part of the video whenever you need. And if you're intrigued by this exploration of banned texts, don't miss the other videos in our series on the forbidden books of the Ethiopian Orthodox Bible, where we've already delved into hidden gems like the Book of Enoch, the Book of Jubilees, and many others. Explore the links in the description to dive into these stories as well. If you find the story of unwavering faith and divine miracles in the books of Maccabees intriguing, be sure to hit like and subscribe so you won't miss any content from Catholic mystery. We're excited to create more videos that dive deeper into each of these books and explore other mysteries in the Bible. Don't forget to leave a comment below to share your thoughts and let us know what you'd like to see next. Let's uncover the forbidden mysteries of faith together. Now, let's explore the books of Maccabees, an often overlooked yet critical chapter of biblical history where unwavering faith collides with oppression and divine wonders unfold. Imagine a story that begins not with a large-scale rebellion but a single defiant act, sparking one of the most pivotal uprisings in Jewish history. The 1st book of Maccabees reveals more than just a chronicle of war. It is a moving testament to the resilience of faith, depicting a time when the survival of the Jewish religious identity hung in the balance. This ancient narrative, frequently omitted from Christian Bibles, captures the extraordinary tales of courage, resistance, and unanticipated triumphs you might not have encountered before. In the 2nd century BC, the Maccabean Revolt ignited against the powerful Seleucid Empire, which under Antiochus IV Epiphanes sought to dismantle Jewish traditions, supplanting them with Hellenistic values and pagan practices. The temple in Jerusalem was desecrated, and the Jewish people were coerced into sacrificing to Zeus, a line many found they simply could not cross. Does this situation sound familiar? Just as Daniel and his friends refused to bow to Nebuchadnezzar's golden image in Daniel 3, here too, Jews were faced with a choice: abandon their faith or face death. The Maccabean Revolt echoes the trials of faithful believers across biblical narratives, where upholding God's laws often meant risking everything they had. The spark of resistance came through a bold stand that would forever alter the course of history. When royal officials demanded a pagan sacrifice, a Jewish priest named Mattathias refused. In a surge of righteous zeal, he struck down the enforcer of the king's decree, an act that ignited the Maccabean Revolt. Mattathias's courage mirrors other fervent acts found in the Bible, like Phinehas's actions in Numbers 25:7-13, defending the sanctity of the covenant. This bold stance by Mattathias was a catalyst, inspiring a movement that safeguarded Judaism through one of its darkest periods. After Mattathias's death, the leadership of the revolt passed to his son, Judas Maccabeus, whose name would resonate through history. Known as the Hammer, Judas emerged as a formidable military strategist. Despite facing a significantly larger and better equipped Seleucid force, His small band of fighters defied the odds, repeatedly defeating their powerful foes. These weren't just military achievements. They were perceived as miraculous acts of God's intervention. The story takes on a divine element as Judas and his followers believed that God was actively guiding them, much like how Gideon's small army in Judges 7 overcame overwhelming odds through faith. Before each battle, they would turn their hearts to the heavens, relying on God's might rather than sheer numbers. In one such moment, as Judas beheld the vastness of the enemy forces, he rallied his men, saying, "Let us not fear their numbers, but trust in the Lord of heaven, who is mighty to save in battle." 1 Maccabees 3:18. Against overwhelming odds, the forces led by Judas Maccabeus triumphed time and again, reclaiming their sacred homeland. In the second book of Maccabees, the profound faith of the martyrs reaches extraordinary heights as they embrace death, fully believing that God will reward their sacrifice with eternal life. At the center of this powerful narrative is a mother who witnesses the brutal deaths of each of her 7 sons. Remarkably, rather than succumbing to overwhelming grief, she finds the strength to encourage her sons to remain steadfast in their faith, reminding them of the resurrection and God's justice. Her courage and resolve evoke the spirit of Hannah from 1 Samuel, who entrusted her son Samuel to God despite her personal sorrow. Yet this mother's role goes beyond even that. Her encouragement becomes a powerful testament to unwavering belief in God's promises, extending beyond this life to a hope in the life that is to come. In 2 Maccabees, the theme of resurrection moves to the forefront. Although resurrection is only briefly touched upon in canonical texts like Daniel, here it assumes profound importance. The martyrs face their suffering with an unshakable conviction that God will raise them up in the world to come, granting them an eternal reward for their faithfulness. This belief mirrors ideas found in Pharisaic Judaism and foreshadows Christian teachings on resurrection. The conviction that the righteous will be resurrected and rewarded is later echoed in the New Testament, particularly in passages like Matthew 22:31-32, where Jesus affirms the resurrection, and in 1 Corinthians 15, where Paul describes resurrection as a core belief in Christian faith. These martyrs from 2 Maccabees, in their suffering and steadfastness, serve as early examples of the Christian martyrs who followed, whose sacrifices were also celebrated as triumphs due to their faith in the resurrection. Their stories remind us that God's justice extends beyond this earthly life, and that enduring suffering for righteousness will ultimately be rewarded in eternity. 2 Maccabees, however, does not solely center on the martyrs. It also recounts remarkable divine interventions on the battlefield. A striking example occurs during the battle at Beth Zur, where Jewish forces, though heavily outnumbered, are on the brink of defeat. Suddenly, in a miraculous turn, 5 radiant figures on horses with golden bridles appear on the field. These are no ordinary men. They are angels sent by God to protect Judas Maccabeus and his troops from harm. These heavenly warriors unleash a storm of arrows and lightning upon the enemy, throwing them into chaos and securing victory for the Jewish forces. When the battle became fierce, 5 splendid men on horses with golden bridles appeared to lead the Jews. They took Maccabeus in their midst, and shielding him with their armor, they kept him from being wounded. They showered arrows and lightning on the enemy, throwing them into confusion. 2 Maccabees 10:29-30. This scene echoes other angelic rescues in Scripture, such as the story in 2 Kings 6:17, where Elisha's servants' eyes are opened to see the celestial armies protecting them. Moments like these in 2 Maccabees remind us that God is present in our struggles, with angelic forces ready to intervene when righteousness is at stake. Another powerful moment of divine reassurance unfolds as Judas Maccabeus receives a vision of the prophet Jeremiah, who hands him a golden sword and urges him to take it into battle. This sword is far more than a mere weapon. It is a sign of God's promise that Judas will prevail. Jeremiah stretched out his right hand and gave Judas a golden sword, saying as he did so, "Take this holy sword, a gift from God, with which you will strike down your adversaries." 2 Maccabees 15:16. This vision imbues Judas with the confidence he needs to lead his forces forward, certain of God's support. This encounter echoes other divine appearances in the Bible, like when Joshua encounters the commander of the Lord's army in Joshua 5:13-15, an assurance of God's guidance as Israel prepares to claim the promised land. More than a continuation of the Maccabean Revolt, 2nd Maccabees is a compelling narrative interwoven with themes of faith, divine intervention, and resurrection. The martyrs who gave their lives for God's law did so with a steadfast hope that they would be vindicated in the life to come, and the miraculous battles demonstrate that, even when vastly outnumbered, those who stand with God never stand alone. The stories in 2nd Maccabees had a profound influence on early Christian thought, particularly the link between martyrdom and resurrection. The courage of these martyrs and the miraculous events on the battlefield inspire a faith that transcends earthly suffering, grounded in a trust in God's ultimate justice and eternal reward. If these powerful stories of faith and resilience have moved you, don't miss the chance to delve deeper. Hit the like button, share this video with friends who seek spiritual insight, and subscribe to Catholic Mystery to keep exploring hidden biblical texts and the profound truths they hold. Comment below with your thoughts on the Maccabees or other books you'd like us to cover. Let's continue this journey of uncovering God's mysteries together. Despite the heroic events detailed in the first 2 books, the story of the Maccabees doesn't conclude here. The 3rd book of Maccabees reveals that God's protective reach extends far beyond the battlefield, rescuing his people from political persecution through unexpected, miraculous means. Set not in the land of Israel, this extraordinary account unfolds in Egypt, underscoring a critical message. God's power transcends borders. Wherever his people may be, even in exile, he is present to deliver them. In this book, faith, rather than weapons, becomes the primary tool of salvation, as divine intervention unfolds in a truly remarkable way. Whereas 1st and 2nd Maccabees focus on the Jewish struggle against the Seleucid Empire in Judea, 3rd Maccabees shifts to the heart of Ptolemaic Egypt, where the Jewish people encounter a new and insidious form of persecution, not through warfare but within the political sphere. This unique setting reveals that God's protection is not limited to a specific location or physical defense. It extends to preserving the integrity and freedom of his people's faith, even under political oppression in foreign lands. The story opens with the ruler of Egypt, Ptolemy IV, fresh from a military victory against Antiochus III, feeling emboldened to push the limits of his power. Fueled by arrogance, Ptolemy decides to enter the Holy of Holies, the most sacred part of the Jewish temple in Jerusalem, a place strictly reserved for the high priest. This overreach is not just a political move, but a clear sign of disrespect and disregard for the Jewish faith. However, as Ptolemy approaches the inner sanctum, he encounters an invisible barrier. God strikes him down with blindness and paralysis, preventing him from desecrating the holy space. Humiliated and seething with anger, Ptolemy returns to Egypt, where he begins to harbor a vengeful grudge. His fury extends beyond the Jews in Jerusalem to target the entire Jewish population within his own territories. Ptolemy's actions and attitude resemble those of other oppressive rulers found in the Bible. His arrogance is reminiscent of Pharaoh's hardened heart against the Israelites, and Nebuchadnezzar's demand for worship of his golden image. Like these kings, Ptolemy is about to learn that no earthly ruler, regardless of power or pride, can contend with the will of God. Driven by his resentment, Ptolemy orders the mass roundup and registration of all Jews living in Egypt, with a dark plan to execute them. His intent is chilling. He plans to gather the Jews into the city of Alexandria and have them trampled to death by elephants in a gruesome public spectacle, intending to eliminate an entire population solely due to their faith and refusal to assimilate. The Jewish community in Egypt, faced with this horrific decree, responds with unwavering faith. Instead of succumbing to despair, they turn to prayer and fasting, entrusting their fate to God. This act of collective devotion mirrors other moments of prayerful resistance in biblical history. For instance, in the book of Esther, Queen Esther calls for a 3-day fast before risking her life to save her people from Haman's genocidal plot. Similarly, in 2 Chronicles 20, King Jehoshaphat proclaims a fast when facing a daunting invasion, which ultimately leads to God's miraculous deliverance. In 3rd Maccabees, the Jews' steadfast trust in God's power to save them from annihilation never wavers, even in the face of what seems like an inevitable doom. Their fervent prayers and fasting reach God, initiating a chain of events that will deliver them in an extraordinary and unexpected manner. As the Jewish people gather in Alexandria awaiting their death, Ptolemy's deadly plan begins to unfold. Elephants are brought in, prepared to trample the Jewish people, and it seems as though the community's last moments have arrived. Yet, just as the tragedy appears imminent, something miraculous occurs. God steps in to turn the situation upside down. As the elephants are driven forward toward the Jews, they suddenly turn on their handlers instead, going wild and trampling the Egyptian soldiers. Chaos erupts in the city, as the very animals meant to bring death to the Jewish people instead become instruments of their salvation. This divine intervention recalls similar moments of miraculous deliverance in the Bible. Just as God used the plagues in Egypt to free the Israelites, or parted the Red Sea to save them from Pharaoh's armies, he now employs these elephants to protect his people, using the forces of nature and unexpected means to reverse the plans of their oppressors. The 3rd book of Maccabees highlights an essential truth about God's protection. It is not confined to the geographical bounds of Israel. Wherever his people find themselves, be it Egypt, Babylon, or any other foreign land, God's sovereignty remains unshaken, capable of safeguarding them under any circumstances. This theme of divine sovereignty over political powers is further developed in the book of Daniel, where we see that earthly kingdoms, no matter how dominant, rise and fall, while the kingdom of God endures forever. Daniel 2:44. Through these events, Ptolemy learns a lesson shared by Pharaoh and Nebuchadnezzar. Human authority, no matter how absolute it may seem, is no match for the supreme power of God's protective hand. In the end, Ptolemy is forced to abandon his destructive plans and acknowledge the might of the Jewish God. Recognizing that their God has delivered them in a way that defies human understanding, he issues a decree granting the Jews in Egypt the freedom to practice their faith without interference. This deliverance story is a powerful testament to the strength of faith in the face of political oppression. The Jews of Egypt did not need to fight with weapons. They relied on the tools of prayer, fasting, and unwavering belief in God's power to save them. And once again, God proved that no earthly ruler could resist his divine will. While perhaps lesser known than the heroic battles of Judas Maccabeus, the miraculous deliverance in 3rd Maccabees carries a similarly powerful message. When God's people remain faithful, he stands ready to rescue them, no matter how impossible their situation may appear. What are your thoughts on this miraculous deliverance recounted in 3rd Maccabees? Does it remind you of other instances in the Bible where God stepped in to save his people against overwhelming odds? Share your reflections in the comments below. And if you found this story of faith inspiring, be sure to like and share this video with others who might appreciate its message. For a deeper dive into other lesser-known but impactful books, explore our series on the banned books of the Bible, including works like the Book of Enoch and the Book of Jubilees. Links are available in the description. As we reflect on these hidden chapters of biblical history, we are invited to explore deeper themes of martyrdom, perseverance, and hope in the promise of God's kingdom. These texts may have been excluded from many Bibles, but their messages hold profound spiritual truths, reminding us that God is ever present, ready to deliver and guide those who remain faithful, no matter where they are or what they face. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the remarkable stories of the Maccabees. If these stories have inspired you, consider delving further into the other banned books we've explored in this series, from the Book of Enoch to the Book of Jubilees. Like, share, and comment below to let us know your thoughts and favorite insights, and subscribe to Catholic Mystery for more explorations of hidden spiritual texts. Together, let's uncover more stories of faith and resilience that remind us of God's timeless promise, that his light shines brightest in our darkest hours.